Hello and a very warm welcome to Pathashala Bulletin. I'm Anil Kumar, and in this podcast we are going to see some important current affairs of the day. Here are the highlights for the day. Dholvira in Gujarat on UNESCO's World Heritage List. Panel wraps government over MSMEs, urges larger economic package. China's sea claims have no bias, says United States. IMF cuts emerging Asia India growth forecast. Well, let's see each one of them in detail. Dholvira in Gujarat on UNESCO's World Heritage List. The Harappan city of Dholvira in present-day Gujarat was named the 40th Indian site on UNESCO's World Heritage List. UNESCO's announcement came just days after another site, Ramappa Temple in Telangana, was admitted to the list on July 25th. About Dholvira. The ancient city of Dholvira is one of the most remarkable and well-preserved urban settlements in South Asia, dating from the 3rd to the mid-2nd millennium BCE. Discovered in 1968, the site is set apart by its unique characteristics, such as its water management system, multi-layered defensive mechanisms, extensive use of stone in the construction, and special burial structures. A range of artifacts of copper, shell, stone, jewelry, terracotta, and ivory have been found at this site. The two newly inscribed World Heritage Sites offer great insight into the knowledge and ways of life of earlier societies, customs, and communities. Located in the Kutch district, Dholvira is the larger of the two most remarkable excavations of the Indus Valley civilization, dating back to 4,500 years ago. The site has been on UNESCO's tentative list since 2014, and India has submitted its dossier in January 2020. UNESCO's World Heritage Sites. The sites are designated as having outstanding universal value under the Convention concerning the protection of World Cultural and Natural Heritage 1972. The World Heritage Center is the secretariat to the 1972 Convention. It provides a framework for international cooperation in preserving and protecting cultural treasures and natural areas throughout the world. There are three types of sites: cultural, natural, and mixed. Cultural heritage sites include hundreds of historic buildings and town sites, important archaeological sites, and works of monumental sculptures or paintings. Natural heritage sites are restricted to those natural areas that have excellent ecological and evolutionary processes, unique natural phenomena, habitats of rare or endangered species. Mixed heritage sites contains elements of both natural and cultural significance. India has 40 World Heritage Sites, including 32 cultural properties, 7 natural properties, and 1 mixed site. Panel wraps government over MSMEs, urges larger economic package. A parliamentary panel has pulled up the government for offering inadequate relief measures for micro, small, and medium enterprises, MSMEs, that were worst affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. It mooted fresh measures to help them stay afloat, including a doubling of 90-day limit for banks to classify their loan dues as problematic. Key points: offering loans and long-term measures. As the government had done over the past year, instead of improving the cash flow to generate demand as immediate relief, have put small enterprises in a grim situation. The second COVID-19 wave this year even more vigorously ripped the economy, particularly the MSME sector, just as it was recovering from the initial lockdowns in 2020. The committee therefore recommends that the government should immediately come out with a larger economic package aimed at bolstering demand, investment, exports, and employment generation to help the economy, including MSMEs to recover from the pandemic fallout. The committee report sought a detailed study of the actual losses suffered by the small enterprises since the onset of the pandemic, noting that no such intensive assessment has been done by the MSME ministry. Arguing that most policies were formulated keeping medium and large enterprises in mind, the panel said the position should be contrary with the focus on micro and small enterprises. The problems aggravated to MSMEs due to COVID-19. The COVID-19 pandemic has left its impact on all sectors of the economy, including the micro, small, and medium enterprises sector. Earlier, the government had declared the relief package, namely the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana, for the poor to help them fight the battle against coronavirus. The second package is expected to primarily focus on the MSME sector. Declining revenues. MSMEs are already struggling in terms of declining revenues and capacity utilization in the lead up to COVID-19 crisis. Unavailability of cash. The total lockdowns has raised an issue of the existence of MSMEs, primarily due to unavailability of cash, which subsequently will result in the job loss. Lack of labor availability. The return of migrant laborers will create an issue of lack of labor availability. Loan against collateral. Loans to MSMEs are mostly given against property as collateral, but in times of crisis, property values fall and that inhibits the extension of new loans. So what are the steps taken? To ease the firm's financial distress during this period, the Reserve Bank of India has announced several measures such as moratorium on term loans and easier working capital financing. Some public sector banks have also opened up emergency credit lines for businesses. And what is the way forward to overcome the financial distress to the MSME sector? The government can provide tax reliefs, GST and corporate tax, give swifter refunds and provide liquidity to rural India, maybe through PM Kisan, to boost demand for MSME products. A credit guarantee by the government can help as it assures the bank that its loan will be repaid by the government in case the MSME falters. If such defaults happen, credit guarantees are shown as departmental expenses in the budget. China's sea claims have no basis, says United States. President Joe Biden's administration wants to reset relations with Asian countries and build alliances to face China after the turbulence and unpredictability of the Donald Trump era. US criticized China's actions in the disputed sea, where China has overlapping territorial claims with several southeastern states. No basis in international law. China's claim to the vast majority of the South China Sea has no basis in international law. US seeks to rally allies in the region as bulwark to China. That assertion treads on the sovereignty of the state in that region. The US would support countries in defending their rights. China claims almost all of the resource-rich sea through which trillions of dollars in shipping trade passes annually, with competing claims from Brunei, Malaysia, Philippines, Taiwan and Vietnam. China has been accused of deploying a range of military hardware, including anti-ship missiles and surface-to-air missiles there, and ignored a 2016 International Tribunal decision that declared its historical claim over most of the waters to be without basis. The raising tensions. Tensions have escalated in the recent months between China and rival claimants. Manila was angered after hundreds of Chinese boats were spotted inside the Philippines' exclusive economic zone, while Malaysia scrambled fighter jets to intercept Chinese military aircraft that appeared off its coast. The US-China relationship has deteriorated over a range of issues from cybersecurity and tax supremacy to human rights in Hong Kong and Xinjiang. Biden has largely kept the hawkish stance on the China of Trump, describing the Asian power as the preeminent challenge to the United States, but has lowered the temperature and instead emphasized working with allies and working at home to compete better. The US is a stabilizing force in Southeast Asia. The South China Sea dispute. Recently, China warned of a US warship sailing near contested parcel islands in the South China Sea. China lays claim to nearly all of the South China Sea, including the parcel islands. However, Taiwan, Philippines, Brunei, Malaysia, and Vietnam also claim part of the region, believed to hold valuable oil and gas deposits. It has alleged that the US warship broke into China's parcel islands' territorial waters without the permission of the Chinese government and accused USA for seriously violating Chinese sovereignty and harming regional peace. The USA's stand. The USA has argued that such exercises are in line with international law and help defend the right to passage through the region amid competing claims by China and other governments. It is in sync with the USA's continuous efforts to counter Chinese assertion in the South China Sea. Recently, the USA Navy sent an aircraft carrier group into the South China Sea, contesting claims over the islands. The Spratly Islands are claimed by China, Taiwan, Vietnam, Brunei and Philippines. The Scarborough Shoal is claimed by Philippines, China and Taiwan. What is the Chinese assertion? Since 2010, China has been converting uninhabited islets into artificial islets to bring it under United Nations Convention on Law of Seas. For example, includes Haven Reef, Johnson South Reef and Fiery Cross Reef. The China has been changing the size and structure of the reefs by modifying their physical land features. It has also established airstrips on Parcel and Spratly Islands. Chinese fighting fleets are engaged in paramilitary work on behalf of the state rather than the commercial enterprise of fishing. The US is very critical of this building of artificial islands and terms these actions of China as building a great wall of sand. What are the other issues associated with the South China Sea? Unidentified geographic scope of the South China Sea. disagreement over disputed settlement mechanisms, undefined legal status of the code of conduct added to it, the different histories of distant, largely uninhabited archipelagos of sea make the matter more complicated and multifaceted. What is India's stand on South China Sea? India has maintained that it is not a party to the South China Sea dispute, and its presence in the South China Sea is not to contain China but to secure its economic interests, especially that of its energy security needs. However, China's increasing ability to decide and expand its scope in the South China Sea has compelled India to re-evaluate its approach on the issue. As a key element to the Act East policy, India has stated internationalizing disputes in the Indo-Pacific region to oppose China's threatening tactics in South China Sea. Further, India is using its Buddhist legacy to make a strong bond with the Southeast Asian regions. India has also deployed its navy with Vietnam in the South China Sea for protection of sea lanes of communication, denying China any space for assertion. Also, India is part of Quad initiative, India, US, Japan and Australia, and linchpin of Indo-Pacific narrative. These initiatives are viewed as containment strategy by China. IMF cuts emerging Asia-India growth forecasts. The International Monetary Fund cut this year's economic growth forecast for emerging Asia, including India, as a spike in coronavirus cases from new variants and slow vaccinations cloud the region's recovery prospects. The downgrade, which contrasted with the upward revision in the IMF's forecast for advanced nations, highlights the divergence emerging across countries on the pace of recovery from the pandemic's hit. The International Monetary Fund cut this year's growth forecast for India by 3 percentage points to 9.5%. World Economic Outlook 2021. Recently, the latest edition of International Monetary Fund's World Economic Outlook has raised its financial year 2021 growth forecast for India to 12.5% from 11.5% estimated earlier in January. Indian economy is expected to grow by 12.5% in 2021 and 6.9% in 2022. In 2020, India's economy witnessed an estimated contraction of 8%. Growth rate of India in 2021 is stronger than that of China. China was the only major economy to have a positive growth rate of 2.3% in 2020 and is expected to grow by 8.6% in 2021 and 5.6% in 2022. The suggestions provided by the IMF. Healthcare sector. The emphasis should be on escaping the health crisis by prioritizing healthcare spending on vaccinations, treatments, and healthcare infrastructure. Fiscal support should be well targeted to affected households and firms. Accommodative monetary policy. Monetary policy should remain accommodative where inflation is well behaved, while proactively addressing financial stability risks using macroprudential tools. Tailored approach. Policymakers will need to continue supporting their economies while dealing with more limited policy space and higher debt levels than prior to the pandemic. This requires better targeted measures to leave space for prolonged support if needed. With multi-speed recoveries, a tailored approach is necessary. With policies well calibrated to the stage of the pandemic, the strength of economic recovery, and the structural characteristics of individual countries. The priorities. The priorities should include green infrastructure investment to help mitigate climate change, digital infrastructure investment to boost productive capacity, and strengthening social assistance to arrest rising inequality. What are the reports which are published by the International Monetary Fund? One is Global Financial Stability Report and the second is World Economic Outlook. With this, it's a wrap of the podcast for the day. Bye for now.